Elena assessed her options in the split second before the Jexari enforcers closed in, 3 against 1, in a maintenance corridor with no witnesses. The crystalline data shard was already transmitted to Marcus, but that wouldn't matter if she couldn't confirm its authenticity. Ambassador Reyes, the lead enforcer's translator module, rendered his clicking mandibles into flat standard. You've accessed restricted areas without authorization. Please accompany us to security. Elena straightened her diplomatic tunic, the insignia of Earth gleaming under the dim emergency lighting. I became disoriented after the station's gravity fluctuation. I was merely seeking an exit. The lie wouldn't hold, but it bought her precious moments. Her neural implant finished its emergency backup protocol, uploading her recent memories to Earth's secure diplomatic server. Our sensors detected a Vraxian life signature in your vicinity, the second enforcer said, its exoskeleton segments shifting with suspicious precision. Contact with unauthorized species is prohibited for Category 4 diplomats. The third Jexari moved to flank her, cutting off the corridor's only other exit. Elena noted the subtle differences in their equipment. These weren't standard security. Their armor bore the insignia of the Concordet's Internal Affairs Division, a branch whose existence wasn't officially acknowledged in diplomatic circles. The Vraxian approached me, Elena replied, her mind racing through diplomatic protocols. I was about to report the encounter. The lead enforcer's compound eyes reflected the corridor's emergency lights in fractured patterns. This section's surveillance experienced a 13-minute disruption. Convenient timing. Elena's hand moved to her collar, where her emergency beacon lay disguised as a decorative pin. One press would alert Earth's security detail stationed 3 levels above. But would they reach her in time? And what message would that send to the Concordat? I'm invoking Article 17 of the Diplomatic Protection Treaty, she stated firmly. Any questioning must be conducted in the presence of my government's legal representative. The enforcers exchanged glances, their mandibles clicking in their native tongue too rapidly for her translator to process. Elena recognized their hesitation. Even the Concordat's shadow operatives couldn't openly violate diplomatic protocols without consequences. Very well, Ambassador, the leader finally conceded. We will escort you to your embassy section, where questioning can proceed appropriately. They wouldn't take her to the embassy, Elena knew. There would be a security concern requiring a detour, or a medical emergency necessitating a scan. Once they had her isolated from witnesses, the pretense would drop. As they marched through the dimly lit corridor, Elena activated her implant's final protocol. If her vital signs ceased or her neural patterns showed signs of coercion, Marcus would receive not just the data but a personal message she'd recorded months ago when her suspicions first arose. I hope this is all a misunderstanding, the lead enforcer said with artificial pleasantness as they approached the main concourse. So do I, Elena replied, meeting the alien's gaze steadily. But I've learned that in diplomacy there are rarely misunderstandings, only inconvenient truths. The Jexari's mandibles twitched in what Elena had learned to recognize as displeasure. They knew she knew. The only question now was how valuable she remained alive versus dead. The grand atrium of the diplomatic sector loomed ahead, its transparent dome revealing the swirling gases of the nebula beyond. Elena straightened her shoulders and prepared for what might be her final performance as Earth's voice among the stars. Marcus exited the funeral reception, his diplomatic credentials granting him access to the Concordat station's private transport network. The small crystalline data shard hidden in his jaw felt heavier than its microscopic weight. 3 different species of security personnel had scanned him already. Standard procedure, they claimed, after a regrettable incident involving a high-ranking diplomat. The transport pod hummed quietly as it navigated through the station's arterial tunnels. Marcus had 15 minutes before he was expected at the mandatory post-funeral diplomatic briefing. 15 minutes to make contact. Detour requested. He spoke to the pod's eye. Central Medical, Cultural Integration Wing. Destination requires Category 3 clearance or medical emergency. The AI responded. Override. Chen, Deputy Ambassador, Earth Embassy. Authorization Protocol Sierra 9 Delta. The transport adjusted course smoothly. One of Elena's last official acts had been updating Marcus's credentials with emergency override protocols. She'd known what was coming. The Cultural Integration Wing was technically a medical facility where representatives from different biospheres could receive treatments to help them tolerate each other's environments. In practice, it was one of the few locations where species from different categories could mingle without extensive surveillance. Marcus exited the pod and navigated the labyrinthine corridors until he reached the atmospheric adaptation chamber. Inside, a Dovalian representative floated in a methane-rich environment behind a transparent barrier. The methane not only kept the gelatinous alien alive, but scrambled most of the Concordat's standard surveillance technologies. Ambassador Chen, the Dovalian's translator, rendered its pulsating speech. Earth's loss is deeply felt. Ambassador Rice was respected among many worlds. Marcus nodded solemnly while activating the privacy screen on his side of the barrier, standard protocol for discussing sensitive medical matters. His neural implant connected with the Dovalian's communication device through a bandwidth so narrow and primitive the Concordat considered it beneath monitoring. She discovered something, Marcus transmitted. Something that affects your world as well. The Dovalian's amorphous body pulsed with bioluminescent patterns, their equivalent of agitation. The resource quotas, the technology restrictions, these are not new concerns. It goes deeper, Marcus replied. They've been altering us biologically, all Category 4 and 5 species, tailored compounds to make us compliant, to dull innovation, to prevent exactly the kind of cooperation I'm attempting now. The Dovalian's translucent tissues darkened. You have evidence. Enough to convince your science directorate. But I need to know, are there others who would listen? Other worlds who suspect? The alien's response was immediate. The Tellurians have been researching unexplained genetic drift in their population. The Elevari noticed cognitive pattern changes after accepting Concordat medical aid. The Terresi hive mind has been fragmenting in ways their evolutionary biology cannot explain. Marcus felt the first flicker of hope since Elena's death. I need to meet with them. Secretly. Impossible. The Dovalian pulsed. The Concordat. The Concordat just threatened to reduce Earth to a mining outpost if we don't comply with their demands. Marcus interrupted. How long before they drop the diplomatic facade for your world too? The Dovalian was silent for 12 seconds, an eternity in their rapid thought patterns. Finally, it responded, the gathering of mourning. 3 cycles from now. All diplomats will attend to honor those lost in the CT Nebula disaster. 17 species will be present. I will arrange connections. Marcus nodded. Thank you. Do not thank me. The Dovalian's patterns shifted to what Marcus recognized as their equivalent of grim determination. If what you claim is true, the Concordat will not permit us to simply walk away. You are not proposing diplomacy, Ambassador Chen. You are proposing revolution. The privacy screen deactivated as Marcus's allotted consultation time ended. He bowed formally to the Dovalian, maintaining the illusion of a routine cultural exchange. Sometimes, he said for the benefit of any listening surveillance, understanding each other's biology is the first step toward meaningful cooperation. As he returned to the transport pod, Marcus calculated how much time remained before the Concordat realized what Elena had discovered, and how far they would go to contain it. Captain Amara Wilson drifted in zero gravity at the center of Resilience's modified engine room, surrounded by holographic schematics that shouldn't exist according to Concordat technology restrictions. The ship's quantum core, officially registered as a standard C-class propulsion system, pulsed with energy that defied conventional physics. Status report, she said to her chief engineer, Dr. Prisha Mehta. Prisha manipulated the holographic display, zooming in on the interface between Concordat components and Earth's experimental systems. Phase shift integration at 89%. The official diagnostic systems will still register normal parameters, But we've essentially built a completely different ship inside the shell of the old one. And if they conduct a physical inspection? Wilson asked, though she already knew the answer. Then we're all headed for Concordat labor colonies, Prisha replied matter-of-factly. But they'd have to dismantle the entire ship to find what we've hidden. Their scanning technology is calibrated to detect known forbidden technologies, not whatever this is. Wilson nodded. Whatever this is was precisely the point. Earth's scientists hadn't tried to replicate Concordat technology. They'd gone in completely different directions, developing systems based on principles the Concordat considered theoretical or impossible. A secure communication alert pulsed at her neural implant. "Give me the room," she ordered, and her engineering team filed out through the airlock. The holographic display transformed into the face of Admiral Helena Chen, Marcus's mother, and Earth's Security Council representative. "Captain, we've received the first neural countermeasure batch from Antarctica. Your crew will be the first test subjects." Wilson felt a chill that had nothing to do with the recycled station air. Side effects? Unknown, Admiral Chen admitted. Kapoor says the compound should neutralize the Concordat's influence without detectable biochemical markers. But we're venturing into uncharted territory. My crew volunteered knowing the risks, Wilson said. We'll proceed immediately. The Admiral's expression remained grave. There's more. Marcus has made contact with representatives from 7 subjugated worlds. The coalition is taking shape faster than expected, which means we need to accelerate our timeline. Wilson processed the implications. The Resilience isn't ready for deployment. We need at least 3 more weeks. You have 10 days, Admiral Chen replied. Concordat Security is increasing inspections across all Category 4 worlds. They suspect something. Have they identified Earth specifically? Not yet, but it's only a matter of time. Marcus reports that Elena's data included details on a Concordat contingency protocol called Resource Preservation Initiative. If triggered, they'll drop all pretense of diplomacy and convert Earth to direct resource extraction. Wilson absorbed this news with the calm detachment that had made her Earth's youngest starship captain. Then we adapt. I'll have Resilience ready in 7 days. Admiral Chen's holographic face displayed a rare smile. That's why we chose you. Amara, one more thing. Kapoor believes the neural countermeasure may have an unexpected side effect. Increased neural plasticity, potentially enhancing cognitive capabilities beyond pre-treatment baselines. You're saying it might make us smarter. He's saying it might unlock human potential that has been artificially suppressed for 30 years, the Admiral clarified. We have no idea what humanity is truly capable of without Concordat constraints. After the transmission ended, Wilson floated silently in the engine room, considering implications that stretched beyond their immediate rebellion. If humans had achieved their current level of advancement while being actively suppressed, what might they become with those limitations removed? She activated her comm. Dr. Mehta, resume work. We have a new deadline. Then, more quietly to herself, and a new possibility. In the darkness of the engine room, the quantum core pulsed with energy that shouldn't exist, much like the hope now growing within an oppressed humanity. Dr. Sanjay Kapoor stood before the holographic display in his Antarctic laboratory, watching real-time neural activity from volunteers across 6 continents. The patterns had changed dramatically in the 72 hours since Operation Clear Mind began. Increased frontal lobe activity, heightened creative centers, strengthened neural pathways. All signs that the human mind was rapidly reclaiming territory lost to Concordat manipulation. Show me Singapore sector, he instructed the eye. The display shifted to a density map of a dense urban area, where thousands of neural signatures pulsed with newfound clarity. What had begun as scattered pockets of awakening consciousness now spread like wildfire through water systems, personal contact, and deliberate distribution networks operated by those already free of influence. His assistant, Dr. Lydia Wong, entered the lab with fresh data tablets. The Concordat Medical Outreach has announced an emergency supplemental treatment for all registered citizens. They're claiming a new pathogen has been detected. They've noticed the behavioral changes, Kapoor said, unsurprised. How soon before distribution? 48 hours. They're manufacturing the compounds on their medical stations. Kapoor nodded grimly. Then we accelerate. Activate the secondary distribution networks. Priority targets are infrastructure workers, communication specialists, and transport hubs. He turned back to the neural maps, watching humanity's collective awakening unfold in real time. The Concordat had spent decades subtly damping human innovation, curiosity, and resistance. Now those suppressed qualities were resurging with explosive force. His secure terminal chimed with an incoming transmission from Marcus Chen, routed through 17 proxy servers. The diplomat's face appeared, tense but composed. The coalition is set, Marcus reported without preamble. 7 species are fully committed, 4 more are considering. But we have a problem. The Tellurians intercepted internal Concordat communications about something called protocol dormancy. Kapoor felt a chill. What is it? We're not certain, but it appears to be a failsafe built into all Concordat technology supplied to developing worlds. If activated, it could disable everything from medical equipment to atmospheric processors. It would kill billions rather than lose control, Kapoor said, not as a question but as a grim confirmation of what he already suspected. The Devalians believe they can develop a countermeasure, but they need detailed scans of Concordat technology operating at quantum levels. Kapoor considered the implications. I can provide those, but transmitting that much data through secure channels would take weeks. We don't have weeks, Marcus replied. The gathering of mourning happens in 3 days. It's our only chance to meet in person with all coalition representatives. Then we need a courier, Kapoor decided. Someone who can physically transport the data to the Concordat station without raising suspicion. Who do you have in mind? Kapoor's gaze shifted to a personnel file on his secondary display. Lieutenant Sophia Reyes, Alina's younger sister. She's stationed on Mars colony, but has diplomatic clearance to attend the gathering representing Earth's cultural exchange program. Marcus's expression tightened. She's not part of Project Exodus. No, Kapoor agreed, but she deserves to know what happened to her sister. And according to her psychological profile, she'll make the right choice when she does. After the transmission ended, Kapoor composed the message that would bring Lieutenant Reyes into their conspiracy. Another family member risking everything. Another piece moving into position on a galactic chessboard where the stakes were nothing less than freedom for 17 species. Outside his laboratory window, the Antarctic storm raged against reinforced barriers, much like the storm of human consciousness now pushing against constraints that had contained it for too long. But unlike the predictable patterns of Earth weather, the Concordat had never truly understood the force they had attempted to control. That miscalculation would be their downfall. Lieutenant Sophia Reyes moved through the Luna shipyard's maintenance tunnels, the quantum data crystal concealed within her ceremonial diplomatic sash. The Concordat inspection team had divided into 3 groups, methodically working through different sections of the facility. Their search patterns made no sense for a routine safety review. They knew exactly what they were looking for. Her neural implant vibrated with an urgent message from Shipyard Director Quaim Ose. Team Alpha breached Secure Lab B7. Containment failing. Sophia quickened her pace. B7 housed prototype shield modulators that violated at least 7 Concordat technology restrictions. If discovered, Earth would lose all plausible deniability. She rounded a corner and nearly collided with 2 Krivid inspectors, their compound eyes swiveling to focus on her. Sophia smoothly transitioned into her diplomatic persona. Honored representatives, she said with a formal bow. This section is scheduled for atmospheric recalibration. I can escort you to more comfortable areas. The taller Krivid's upper appendages twitched in what Sophia recognized as suspicion. Your credentials, human. Sophia presented her diplomatic ID. Lieutenant Sophia Reyes, Cultural Exchange Program. I'm here coordinating accommodations for the gathering of mourning delegates. The Crivid studied her credentials longer than necessary. You share genetic markers with the recently deceased Ambassador Reyes. Sophia allowed genuine grief to surface. My sister. I'm attending the gathering in her honor. The reference to the gathering seemed to satisfy the inspectors, who stepped aside. Sophia continued past them, maintaining a measured pace despite her racing heart. Her implant vibrated again. A priority alert from Captain Wilson. Inspection team breached Resilience's secure compartment. Protocol Exodus activated. T-minus 20 minutes. 20 minutes until everything changed. 20 minutes to complete her mission. Sophia reached the central data hub and pressed her palm against the scanner. The system recognized her biometrics, enhanced with command overrides she hadn't possessed 2 days ago. The massive doors slid open, revealing Director Osei and his security team. They found the prototype weapons, Osei said without preamble. Concordat's security forces are mobilizing. We have less than 15 minutes before they lock down the entire facility. Sophia handed him the crystal containing Kapoor's quantum scans. Get this to the Dovalian representative at the gathering. It's their only chance to counter protocol dormancy. Osei accepted the crystal, then handed her a small device in return. Emergency transceiver. Direct link to Resilience. Captain Wilson says it's time to introduce yourself. Sophia stared at the device. 2 days ago, she'd been a mid-level cultural liaison planning a memorial for her sister. Now she stood at the center of a conspiracy that would reshape the galaxy. What about the civilian personnel? She asked. Evacuation protocols initiated 5 minutes ago. Non-essential staff are being moved to pressure shelters under cover of a containment drill. Osei checked his tactical display. Concordat forces are converging on the main hangar. They're trying to prevent launches. Sophia activated the transceiver. Captain Wilson. This is Lieutenant Reyes. I'm at the central hub with Director Osei. Concordat forces are moving to block evacuations. Wilson's voice came through with perfect clarity. Acknowledged, Lieutenant. Resilience is breaking orbit in 7 minutes. We're deploying countermeasures to cover civilian transports. Can you reach Platform C? Sophia glanced at the facility map. Platform C was 3 levels up, on the opposite side of the complex from where Concordat forces were gathering. Affirmative, she replied. What's on Platform C? Your new assignment, Wilson said. The Nightingale. Diplomatic courier vessel, retrofitted with our latest advancements. Dr. Kapoor believes you're the right person to deliver his neural countermeasure to our coalition partners. Sophia exchanged a look with Osei, who nodded grimly. The ship is prepped and waiting. Good luck, Lieutenant. As alarms began blaring throughout the facility, Sophia Reyes made her choice. She would complete her sister's mission. The diplomatic facade was crumbling, but perhaps diplomacy of a different kind, the forging of a true coalition of equals, could still save them all. Platform C, she confirmed. I'm on my way. Marcus Chen stood in the shadows of Terrath's ancient amphitheater, watching representatives from over 300 species fill the tiered seating. The neutral world's architecture, carved from living crystal millennia ago, was one of the few venues in the galaxy not built or controlled by the Concordat. Its natural resonance properties made advanced surveillance nearly impossible, a fact that had led the coalition to subtly influence the selection of this location for the emergency assembly. 12 minutes until High Chancellor Zorntal's address, whispered Narration, the crystalline-skinned Tellurian representative. Our analysts predict he will offer limited concessions to prevent full-scale rebellion. Marcus nodded. He'll promise technology sharing, relaxed restrictions, even category advancement, all temporary measures until they regain control. Many will accept, Narration observed, her translucent skin refracting light in patterns of concern. Fear is a powerful motivator. So is truth, Marcus replied, touching the neural transmitter concealed beneath his formal diplomatic attire. The device, smaller than his thumbnail, but more powerful than any communication technology the Concordat had ever permitted, represented humanity's greatest achievement since breaking free of neural suppression. His secure comm vibrated, Captain Wilson reports the Resilience has successfully evaded the 3rd Concordat Pursuit Squadron, Narration reported. The demonstration over Proxima Colony was most effective. Marcus allowed himself a small smile. For 3 days, Wilson and her fleet had engaged in what appeared to be a disorganized retreat across 7 star systems. In reality, each escape was a carefully choreographed demonstration of capabilities the Concordat had believed impossible for developing species. Millions had witnessed Earth vessels phasing through supposedly impenetrable blockades or executing maneuvers that defied conventional physics. "And the feeds?" he asked. "Unrestricted transmission to 87% of connected worlds," Narration confirmed. The Dovalians' disruption of the Concordat communication network exceeded expectations. The amphitheater's central platform illuminated as the assembly convened. High Chancellor Zorntal took position at the speaker's dais, his compound eyes surveying the gathered representatives with the cold calculation of a predator assessing prey. "Distinguished members of the Concordat," Zorntal began, his translator rendering his chittering speech into the diplomatic standard language. "We face unprecedented disruption to our peaceful coalition. A small faction of misguided worlds has chosen violence over cooperation, confusion over order." Marcus's calm vibrated again, a different pattern this time. Lieutenant Sophia Reyes had successfully delivered Dr. Kapoor's neural countermeasure to the final coalition partners. All 17 suppressed worlds now had the means to free their populations from Concordat control. "The Concordat has always prioritized stability and advancement for all," Zorntal continued. "We regret that temporary restrictions placed on developing worlds have been misconstrued as oppression. Today, we extend an offer of elevation. All Category 4 worlds involved in recent disturbances will receive immediate Category 2 status, with corresponding technology access and voting rights." Murmurs rippled through the amphitheater. For many representatives, such an unprecedented offering would be tempting. Category 2 status had never been granted to a world that hadn't spent millennia under Concordat guidance. Marcus nodded to Narration, who activated her own concealed transmitter. Throughout the amphitheater, 17 representatives from the coalition worlds received the same message. Phase 3 initiated. As Zorntal detailed the generous terms of his offer, Marcus stepped from the shadows and walked with measured confidence toward the central platform. Concordat security drones tracked his movement, but made no move to stop him. Diplomatic protocol protected representatives during assembly proceedings. "High Chancellor," Marcus called out, his voice cutting through Zorntal's speech, "before we consider your generous offer, I believe the Assembly deserves to hear the complete history of Concordat guidance." Zorntal's compound eyes narrowed to pinpoints of rage as Marcus reached the central platform. "This is not the recognized speaking order, Ambassador Chen." Marcus smiled, his hand moving to activate Dr. Kapoor's neural transmission device. "No, Chancellor. But then nothing about today will follow your established order." The holographic displays throughout Europa Base flickered with real-time strategic updates from across the galaxy. Admiral Helena Chen studied the movements of Concordat forces with the detached calculation of a veteran strategist. 300 warships converged on the Sol system in a formation designed to overwhelm Earth's defenses through sheer numbers. "They're deploying interdiction fields at the heliopause," reported her tactical officer. "Standard containment protocol." Helena nodded. The Concordat was following its own playbook, unaware that humanity had spent years studying those very tactics. Status of the quantum net. 93% coverage across coalition worlds. Came the response from Dr. Mira Patel, who had continued Kapoor's work after he departed for the front lines. "The final nodes in the Tellurian and Elevary systems will be active within 6 hours." Helena allowed herself a moment to appreciate the achievement. In the 3 weeks since Marcus's confrontation with High Chancellor Zorntal at the Assembly, the newly formed Exodus Coalition had accomplished what the Concordat believed impossible: the creation of an entirely new communication network operating on principles the Concordat had never explored. "Any word from Marcus?" she asked. Dr. Patel shook her head. The diplomatic courier vessel Nightingale was last detected entering the Terresi system. Lieutenant Rise reported successful delivery of the neural countermeasure before communications were lost. The mention of Sophia Rise brought a flash of concern. The lieutenant had proven herself remarkable in a crisis, transitioning from cultural liaison to resistance courier with the same determined grace that had characterized her sister. Elena would have been proud. "We've intercepted Concordat communications," her intelligence officer interjected. "They're initiating protocol dormancy in phases, starting with outlying Earth colonies." Elena's expression remained impassive, though her hands tightened on the command console. Casualties. Minimal so far. The Dovalian countermeasures are functioning on critical systems. Life support and medical facilities remain operational, but transportation and communication infrastructure is failing. A priority alert flashed across the command screen, a transmission from Captain Wilson aboard the Resilience. "Admiral, we've detected a Concordat Special Operations vessel approaching Europa. Non-standard configuration. Stealth systems engage." "Identification?" Helena asked. "The Shadow Dancer," Wilson replied. "High Command's elite extraction unit." Helena felt a chill. The Shadow Dancer was infamous among intelligence circles, a vessel designed for a single purpose: capturing high-value targets for Concordat interrogation. She was the obvious target. "Evacuation protocols," she ordered calmly. "Transfer command to the secondary facility on Titan." Her officers exchanged glances. "Admiral, your strategic knowledge is already distributed across secure nodes," Helena finished. "More importantly, they must not capture any coalition leadership. It would compromise everything we've built." As her staff began emergency procedures, Helena activated her secure terminal. A final contingency message needed to be sent, not to Earth's leadership or coalition partners, but to her son. "Marcus," she recorded, "the Concordat fleet has arrived at Sol. Protocol dormancy is active. Europa base is compromised. Proceeding to contingency Omega." She paused, military discipline warring briefly with maternal instinct. "The Shadow Dancer is hunting leadership targets. Assume all known coalition command centers are compromised. Activate the Anansi protocol regardless of completion status. There will not be another opportunity." She transmitted the message through the nascent quantum net, then systematically began purging her neural implant of strategic data. If the Shadow Dancer succeeded in capturing her, they would find only Helena Chen, mother and officer, not the accumulated knowledge of the coalition's defense plans. Outside the command center viewport, the icy surface of Europa gleamed under Jupiter's reflected light. Somewhere beyond the gas giant's massive presence, Concordat warships were preparing for what they believed would be a decisive battle against a desperate but doomed rebellion. They had no idea what humanity was about to unleash. Dr. Sanjay Kapoor's fingers danced across the quantum interface as the Concordat flagship Inevitable Dominance loomed on the view screen. Aboard the modified science vessel Hidden Truth, concealed within Saturn's rings, he worked to finalize the Anansi protocol, while Marcus monitored communication feeds from across the galaxy. "Europa base has fallen," Marcus reported, his voice tight with controlled emotion. "No word on survivors." Kapoor nodded grimly, but didn't pause his work. The fate of billions rested on completing the protocol before the Concordat fleet finished positioning around Earth. The Neural Transmitter Network. Lieutenant Reyes confirms final calibration on the last node. All 17 coalition worlds are synchronized. A proximity alert flashed. A small vessel had detached from the Concordat fleet and was accelerating towards Saturn at impossible speeds. The Shadow Dancer, Marcus identified. "They must have tracked my mother's transmission." Kapoor's hand stilled momentarily. "We're out of time." He transferred the command codes to the main console. "Final activation requires simultaneous authorization from both of us. The system will broadcast through all nodes simultaneously, bypassing all Concordat filtering and control systems." Marcus joined him at the console, studying the display. "What's the coverage radius?" Every connected device within Concordat space, Kapoor replied. The signal piggybacks on their own communication network, using their relays to amplify our transmission. And the effect. Kapoor's expression was solemn. Every sentient being exposed to the signal will experience complete neural clarity for approximately 12 minutes, free from all Concordat influence, cognitive constraints, and information filters. They'll see the truth of the Concordat's manipulation with perfect clarity. The shadow dancer accelerated, its trajectory now clearly aimed at their position. Defensive systems would be useless against the specialized hunter ship. 12 minutes to change the course of galactic history, Marcus said softly. He placed his palm on the authentication panel beside Kapoor's. For Elena. For all of us, Kapoor added as their synchronized authorization triggered the protocol. The hidden quantum transmitters embedded throughout the Concordat's own communication network activated simultaneously. A wave of unfiltered truth swept outward at the speed of light, bypassing all security protocols, language barriers, and cognitive controls. On the Concordat flagship, High Commander Xelthrak's compound eyes widened as centuries of carefully constructed neural barriers dissolved. For the first time in his species' recorded history, he perceived reality without the subtle controls embedded in every Concordat citizen's neural pathways since birth. Similar awakenings cascaded across thousands of worlds. Species that had spent millennia under various forms of Concordat control suddenly experienced unfiltered consciousness. The lies, the manipulations, the artificial hierarchies, all became visible in perfect clarity. On the bridge of resilience, Captain Wilson watched in awe as Concordat warships surrounding Earth broke formation. Communications channels erupted with overlapping transmissions in hundreds of languages as Concordat commanders and crews struggled to process their sudden awakening. "They're standing down," her tactical officer reported incredulously. "Multiple ships are broadcasting ceasefire declarations." The shadow dancer, mere moments from reaching the hidden truth, abruptly changed course. Its weapons systems powered down as its crew experienced the same revelation affecting the entire Concordat fleet. In the Terrath Amphitheater, where representatives had remained in emergency session since Marcus's confrontation with Zorntal, chaos erupted as the signal reached them. The Concordat Council members physically recoiled as their mental conditioning dissolved. Several collapsed under the weight of suddenly unfiltered consciousness. Lieutenant Sophia Reyes, standing among the coalition representatives, activated the emergency broadcast system. Her voice, clear, determined, and free of fear, reached every communication device in the chamber. "What you are experiencing is the truth. For the first time in millennia, you are seeing reality without Concordat filters. This clarity is temporary, but what you do with it will reshape our shared future. The Exodus Coalition offers an alternative path, one built on genuine cooperation rather than control." As the signal continued to spread, Marcus received an encrypted transmission from an unexpected source. High Chancellor Zorntal himself, his voice stripped of its usual imperious tone, requested a private communication channel. "Ambassador Chen," the Krivid leader began, his compound eyes revealing a turmoil never before seen in the species. "I believe we have much to discuss about the future governance of our shared galaxy." The chains had begun to break.